good to be home. It was good to travel. But when you go away and you come back, you can come home refreshed, renewed from the invigoration of a new environment, the new world that Dawn was singing about. What great energy in the lyrics of that song, because renewal and being refreshed is key to our journey, because change is all around us in every moment. And when we get stuck and are unwilling to reap the benefits of the changing moment that is upon us, we lose the infinite potential that God has available to us in this life. Renewal and being refreshed, these are also important characteristics for self-care, individually and as a community. We need that new energy. We are called to take advantage of the new energy that God gives us in our life. And when we are in that process of shift and change that involves renewal, and yet it also involves in our human energy, sometimes like, oh no, please don't move anything. I like things just the way they are. In fact, I liked it better last year. So could I please have that back? That's not what the energy of life calls to us. It moves us forward. And we have ease and grace and flow if we ride the crest of that wave of movement rather than tumbling underneath the surface of the wave. Reverend Sky St. John taught his mentees that there was a most dangerous question to ask. A most dangerous question to pose. And that is the query, what's next, God? What's in store? What's around the bend? We can't see it, but we know it's coming. And when we prepare for it, we are ready for that crashing thunder of the new. We are ready to grasp that opportunity from the sky. I also had a mentor that used to say, all hell must break loose so heaven can break free. We experience the most positive growth, the most self-development, the most shift and transformational pieces of our life through those things often that are also the most tumultuous, and the upheaval and the new, and the resistance we may hold to that process of what new is coming around the bend waiting for us. I was talking about this talk the month before I left for the mainland, and saying that my working title was Bring It On, I'm ready. And Denise said, oh my heavens, no, please, don't do that. She said, I once gave a talk with that very title in another church, and indeed, all hell broke loose. Maybe because they weren't prepared for that flow and movement that is the process of change in our lives. So I proclaim we're ready. Right here, right now, this community is ready for the journey that we are already on. So I encourage us, let's be ready because it is upon us. As Thomas said, there will be more information coming, but we now have 2 ministerial candidates booked for the last 2 Sundays of this month. We are in the flow and the movement of what wants to take place in this community. So I invite us to be ready, to step up, to let go of the past. Another lesson I learned from Sky St. John in a class one day, he was saying, it is our human nature to want to just plant our feet and not move from where we are. Because we've been there. We know what the ground looks like. We know what the rules are. We know how to play the game. Because I have some energy around this topic today that I didn't know I found until I got up here and Dawn sang that song. We need to be ready. And we get ready through our intention, through preparation, through the power of recognizing the movement of God is in this shift and change. And we can roll right along with it on the crest of the wave, or we can be tumbled underneath in the sand and the power of the surf. I see that powerful experience of hell and heaven already in our experience in this community. We have been through some tumultuous years. So there's those of us who have been around here for a while. If you weren't here to see it, bless all of us who were, because we did big work in this period of time in these recent years to prepare ourselves for what is coming. And the culmination is beginning later this month. That will unfold the power of that minister's prayer that Thomas shared with us, that we are calling the right and perfect person in harmony and joy to lead this community to what we are collectively called to be through the energy of God here in Honolulu, in the greater world, and most especially in our own lives. We have been through the challenges of turmoil and the misdirection of our community purpose, but we have pulled ourselves together in these recent years. Collectively, we have done the work that we needed to do to get back on track, now proclaimed so by Unity Worldwide Ministries, who sees us as a vanguard of what unity can be in the world, because we have been through the turmoil, because we took charge of our own destiny, and because we accepted the leadership of a woman whose skills were perfectly matched to lead us through the desert into the new valley. Reverend Denise, in these last 2 years, has coached and mentored and led and trained us and lifted us to be ready for what is coming next. And we will see the results unfold in these coming months. And it begins September 19 and September 26. Stay tuned for more details when those are available. Don't ask me in Community Connection today, because I have no more answers to share. But just know that here we have arrived at this point that we have been preparing for. And we have stood in the knowledge that God was in the midst of all of this process. Sometimes we waver. That's our human self kind of forgetting. Divine amnesia, forgetting the truth of who we are. But we have returned time and time again to that solid place of heaven on earth. The last chapter of the Bible, Revelation, is a powerful statement of what's coming when we align with the energy of God. Revealed to John, it describes the challenges that we face when we strive to be in coherence with the energy of God, when we desire to live the kingdom of heaven on earth right now. Oh, it takes some work. It takes some vision. It takes some trust in that presence of the Holy Spirit to be the voice that urges us each forward individually, that brings us together as community and moves us forward as one, in one accord, so that we are focused in our divine mission. What we currently say we are called to be and do in this community is to be centered in God, so that we can transform lives. That begins with each one of us, our own transformation, shaping and changing who we are, stepping into the greater truth of our divine nature. We know we're human. We know we will spend time in the bondage of our human nature, but we strive to be free of that, and Revelation gives us a glimpse of what that future looks like. It describes the transformation of our collective consciousness coming into this transformation of living the kingdom of heaven on earth right here, right now. And it begins with our own individual work, that we steep ourselves in that presence, power, and activity of God through prayer, through meditation, through study, through gathering in community where we experience the compassion, the power, the synergy of being together in single purpose. Of literally living the promise that Jesus gave us: when two or more gather, holding that same intention in our hearts and in our minds, that energy swells in the midst to guide us forward, to lift us out of anything that's an obstacle or turmoil or a challenge, and move us forward in the grace of God. in the informed wisdom of God moving in, as, and through us. So by the time we get to this final chapter of the Bible, we have been through the turmoil. The people of Israel have been through the challenges. They have been through the wars. And right here, right now, they come to the place where they are recognizing the promises of God are real, can be trusted, can guide us forward to this beautiful experience of that perfect alignment, the coherence with God in every step of our lives. When we let go of the fear that comes along with our human nature, then we experience the new heaven and the new earth, the new world that Don called us into delight over. It's the full expression of this loving presence of the infinite Spirit of God. And when we are anchored in that, when we stand in that truth, the presence of God, then fear melts away. There will be no pain because we have raised into a consciousness that recognizes everything of the human body is not the ultimate reality. When we raise ourselves into the ultimate truth of God, then we become free of our own resistance. We become free of the ideas of duality, of right and wrong, of black and white figuratively, maybe black and white literally. We become the energy of the one presence and the one power. And we are free of pain because we know that in God, these qualities and these circumstances that trouble us in our humanity, they do not exist in the kingdom of heaven. And we can transcend what we find to be the challenges of our lives. We can choose in every moment to express the greater truth of God, to use this inspired creativity to create a local community and a global community that is centered in the power of God's love. We make that determination every moment of every day. With every choice we make around the thoughts we hold in our mind, the words we speak with one another, and the actions we take. Are they God-centered? Are they transformative? Are they inspiring? So let me read you this first section of Revelation chapter 21. Then I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth had passed away. The human experience will pass away as we fully step into the mind of God and the experience of heaven on earth. I continue the reading. And I saw the holy city, the new Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God. This new creation is available to us. Reach up. Bring that experience of God down into your heart and into your mind so that you can see this new creation. Continuing the reading, I like to metaphysicalize and read the scripture. Coming down from God, prepared as a bride adorned for her husband. I kind of think that's all spangly, sparkly, and new, renewed and refreshed. And I heard a loud voice from the throne saying, "See, the home of God is among mortals." The home of God is among mortals. God is meant to be in the midst of this life experience that we are having. If this is an illusion and we are all stretching to live beyond the limitations of our human experience, know that God was meant to be in the midst of our mortal life, in the midst of our human conditions. And it's only because we forget that it seems God could ever be absent from us. Continuing the reading again. He will dwell with them as their God, and they will be his peoples. That promise is how we are intended to live, in the presence, in the activity, in the life, in the light, and in the love of God, immersed in it, filled with it, moved by it in every expression of our life. And God himself will be with them, and he will wipe away every tear from their eyes. When we live in this connected presence with God, in this complete awareness of the truth of who we are, sorrow is removed. And as the scripture says, death will be no more. Mourning and crying and pain will be no more, for those first things of the first world spoken of at the beginning of this passage, the first things have passed away. Our human experience is transitory. We are here for a short time. Every situation and circumstance we experience is but a flash, a moment of the lifespan we live as unlimited energy. The first things have passed away. What we thought was true, we came to know, was simply the illusion of this human life. And what waits for us beyond is so much more depth and richness and capacity and power. And some days we can hardly put our hands around the meaning of God. For it isn't a figure of a white-bearded man in the sky. It is an unlimited potential and capacity in the quantum field to have everything available to us. And then it pops into our reality when we become focused with clarity, when we claim that promise, 2 or more holding an intention, the Spirit of Christ energy rises in that midst. When we know that's how the world here operates, then we are at capacity to be empowered to live our lives. We can't always control the circumstances that occur, but we have infinite control of how we will show up in those circumstances, what attitude we will have, what questions will guide us through this new movement. Let me finish the rest of the scripture. And the one who is seated on the throne said, "See, I am making all things new." Also, he said, "Write this, for these words are trustworthy and true." And then he said to me, "It is done. I am the Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end. To the thirsty I will give water as a gift from the spring of the water of life." Those are the first 6 verses of chapter 21, Revelation, and some metaphysicalizing in the midst of, and some more thoughts about that. This follows on a history of the Israelite people of fearsome, exhausting wars and conflicts. They have moved through terrifying illusions that there was lack, or that they could have been separated from this powerful presence of God. Those ideas, now in the midst of this kingdom of heaven experience, those fearful ideas have been erased. Everything that is not an eternal energy, not a pure expression of spiritual truth, that's been relegated to the dust. It has been dissolved back into the nothingness from which we humans created it to be purified and reborn, recreated in useful ways. The energy is always circulating. Whatever we create, if we deem it wrong or ineffective or, oh, whoops, that was a big mess up I just created, the energy of God is always moving to help us realign and head in a new direction, to create that whole new world. And what follows is the payoff we're looking for, expressed in this verse. Then I saw a new heaven and a new earth. And the old had passed away, and the new remains, because now we have the consciousness to hold these higher ideas. And I believe that's where we stand as a community. We have been in this intense period of recreation, of renewal, and now we emerge wholly ready for a leader that has the capacity to take us forward in our journey, to partner with us in this higher truth, in this kingdom consciousness that we are ready for. And let's bring everybody along with us. Let's arrive at the holy city, the New Jerusalem, and announce to ourselves that the home of God is amongst us. God itself is in the midst of me. What a great affirmation. When your challenges arise, and we know they will, as long as we're still here in the human body, we are going to be dealing with the stuff of life. But we can touch our heart to tell ourselves, this is truth. This thought is a guiding principle for my life. God is in the midst of me. Through every piece of my journey, through every circumstance, death will be no more. I can let go of the pain, the mourning, and the crying, and lift myself into the realm of God. It's been a particularly important passage for me to discover. While I was on the mainland having a delicious and joyful reunion with a longtime friend, one morning I got a call from my nephew. And we'd been praying for my brother because he was in the hospital and ill. My 82-year-old brother, my younger, older brother, Larry. And we had sort of had information that he was moving in the direction of regaining his health. And somewhere when I was out of touch for about 24 or 36 hours, his body tanked. And I got a call saying if I wanted to speak to my brother one last time, I needed to be present and do it this morning. And it ended up that I spent about 5 hours on the phone. Family members were with Larry. I was on the phone. His daughter was also on the phone. Just envision this. My brother's in a hospital bed. His wife and his son are there in the room. I'm on one cell phone, and my niece is on the other cell phone. All of us being together to give witness to Larry's decision, his inner wisdom, that he was done. And he decided to end treatment. So then there was a process of preparation to ease the way for his decision. And when the support was removed, he passed very quickly, reasonably with ease. And we all felt the confidence of spirit to know that he had made that choice in his own divine wisdom. He'd spoken with his pastor. His family was with him. And he left this earth because he saw, I believe, he saw the new world that waited. And he was ready, having completed his 82 years in the physical body. And so I love the imagery of this particular chapter, the shining city on the hill. It doesn't have to be the place we're looking to go after we lay down the body. We can claim it here and now. And we do that by following our principles and our own inner guidance. And we connect to that wisdom through prayer and meditation. We immerse ourselves in the presence of God so that it is God moving and expressing through us to guide us in every single life circumstance. My nephew sent pictures during this process. And I could see Larry's peace. I could see the shift from having been dire and ill and struggling and fighting against what was taking place in his body. We could all see the exhaustion. And in that final morning, what we saw was the inner confidence that God was with him in the midst of the journey, and the confidence that he was making his own perfect divine choice. Now, those same principles guide us forward, not only in the letting go, but in the guiding us forward. And isn't that like our prayer process? We deny what we don't want to give power to, we let it go, and we claim and we step forward in the truth that we choose to live. That's who we are as people of God. The ones God has chosen to live in the midst of, and that's all of us. So bring somebody to your mind right now who's, you know that person, the one who just always finds the button that triggers you in every interaction. Bring that person into mind and know that God is in the midst of that relationship. Bring your work environment if you are still employed as opposed to retired or just luxuriating. Love that word. If you are still at work, consciously bring God into the midst of that activity. Bring God into the relationship with your family members. It's not always easy to be family, right? Especially the family of our origin. I hear you. And what that means is that's the place where we get to experience our growth most fully. We get to be people that God is in the midst of when we give ourselves into the work of our life that's at hand. Whether it's our family of origin, whether it's our work relationships, whether it's our community, striving to move forward in one accord so that we have the consciousness to call the right and perfect leader to us and support them effectively as they coach us in the journey forward. God in the midst is the promise that carries us forward. God in the midst. A few weeks ago, while I was on the mainland, I watched Catherine Burton give our center update. And she related the work that was happening in the nonviolent communication group. Now, not only are they learning empathy and compassion and effective listening skills and communicating clearly, the clear sharing of ideas, but they also take these principles into fruitful practice. And so Catherine relayed how the group together had asked the question, what are the personal needs that support this journey we're on in the community right now, leading toward finding the next perfect leader? And the first one she mentioned, do you remember, is personal responsibility. That we are wholly present in this true nature of God within us, striving to be all that we are called to be, so that collectively, that's a consciousness that we raise as we welcome these candidates to meet us, that we are conscious of who we are and who we have come here to be, and we say yes to the responsibility of seeing, knowing, and living that in our thoughts, words, and actions. She also relayed that the group settled on the personal need of safety, that we create a vessel here that welcomes a healthy exchange of ideas. And as we are about to move into a process of candidating ministers and our board deciding who will be our next leader, that as we exchange our opinions and our thoughts and our ideas, we do so with empathetic listening. We don't put the stake in the ground of here's my opinion, here's my position, and never move. We might approach our conversations with one another in community as, oh, now there's an interesting idea. I hadn't thought of that one. Can we be in this process of a wholly new experience coming to us, and rather than be in resistance, welcome the differences that show up, welcome the new ideas with open heart and open mind, create a safe vessel in this community, a container of harmony that allows us to move forward in these coming weeks with ease and grace, with God in the midst. In class, when we review class guidelines, I like to point out that those of us who have been in couplehood probably are aware that it is not the highest wisdom when somebody gives you an idea that's new or unsettling or just disturbing or maybe comes to you kind of a little bit out of left field. the helpful response is probably not, "Where did you ever get an idea like that?" I only relate that out of my personal experience, and the husband isn't here to give witness, but sometimes he nudges me in my backside and say, "Tell the truth, girl, you are in church." So we need to be open with one another, receptive to this process. And if something is a little bit startling in these coming weeks, or you think you've formed an opinion and you've kind of got yourself in that space on the ground, just kind of allow for whatever's new, whatever's different, to wash over you with ease and grace, and remember, God is in the midst. Let that be our affirmation these coming months. God is in the midst of me and every circumstance that I am in. And Catherine reminded us that we create our experience through the power of our mind. The law of mind action and unity says that where we focus our energy, that's what we are creating. So it would behoove us in the coming weeks to focus our energy on the idea of God in the midst. Every idea is valuable to be expressed and shared and met with honor and respect. And to know that it begins with my personal responsibility of being connected to the presence of God and the truth of my being in this experience and all of life. Let us stay anchored in that. Now, I got led down this path of this talk by a song from Daniel Nahmod. It's been my anthem for almost 2 months. Sometimes I listen to it several times a day. You can find a live recording on YouTube. Get the one where he's sitting at a piano keyboard in a plaid shirt, because he sings with the power and passion of these lyrics that he wrote. The chorus, "Bring it on!" Say it with me. Bring it on! Everything new, everything different, everything true. I am ready. I am ready for my next thing to do. Oh, I know it's going to be everything new. In these coming weeks, I invite us into welcoming everything new with an open heart and an open mind, and the question, lead me to what's next, God. Lead me to what's next. Take a breath with me. Breathe into that space of knowing God is in the midst of you right here, right now. You are the life of God manifest in your earthly experience. You are the energy of God moving for good in the world. You are the shining new city on the hill. You are the new Jerusalem. And know that the old world has passed away, because you have been willing to let it go, to release any attachment to what our history has been in this community, to what the stories are that we might still be telling. Lay them down. We acknowledge them so that we remember the greater truth that God is in the midst of us right now, and what God brings is everything new, everything different, everything true. God, I am ready. Walk with me in this willingness to see what is my next thing to do. Because I know in the midst of God, I am ready for everything new. We rest in that consciousness and allow the new and the true to wash over our hearts and our minds as we say, What's next, God? And we rest in the silence.